Welcome back, everyone. Today, we're going to do a deep dive on something kind of interesting.
Yeah.
Something that's been getting a lot of attention in the financial world,
hmm
Hong Kong. And it's growing ties to the Gulf Cooperation Council, the GCC.
Okay. Yeah.
You know, those oil-rich nations we always hear about?
Right.
We've got some research and reports here suggesting this partnership.
Hmm.
It's about a lot more than just oil.
Oh, interesting.
Seems to be shaking things up in global finance and tech in some unexpected ways.
Yeah. It's fascinating to see how quickly and deeply this connection is evolving.
Right.
It's almost like watching a new economic power couple kind of emerge,
Yeah. Yeah, that's a good way to put it.
Yeah, on the world stage.
So before we got started, I did some reading, and Hong Kong's strengths are pretty clear. I mean, they're consistently ranked as the world's freest economy,
Right.
and that's drawn a ton of companies, over 9,000 international and mainland companies,
Yeah.
to set up shop there.
Yeah. And they're pulling in a lot of tech investment, too. Something like $50 billion since late 2022.
Wow.
Which is creating jobs too.
Mm-hmm.
Over 15,000 new positions just in the tech sector alone.
Mm-hmm.
But it's not just about the numbers,
Yeah.
Hong Kong has a really strong reputation for operational efficiency,
Yeah.
and their legal system is very transparent,
Yeah.
which makes it really attractive to global investors.
But one thing that I was thinking about is, isn't Hong Kong still heavily reliant on mainland China? And doesn't that create some political risks for investors?
That's a valid concern,
Yeah.
and it's something that analysts are definitely watching very closely.
Mm.
But this partnership with the GCC could actually be a way for Hong Kong to diversify
Right.
its economic relationships and maybe even reduce that dependence on any single market.
So it's a way to hedge their bets a little bit.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay.
It's a bit of a balancing act.
Interesting. So in a way, this partnership could actually be a strategic move to kind of mitigate risk and bolster Hong Kong's standing globally. Exactly. It's about building resilience in a world that's, increasingly uncertain.
Yeah.
And let's not forget about Hong Kong's role as a gateway to Asia,
Right.
especially for trade with China.
And the sources mention that Hong Kong has the fourth largest shipping registry in the entire world, over 2,400 ships.
Wow.
That's got to be a huge advantage for connecting with the GCC.
Absolutely. A massive chunk of GCC trade with China actually flows through Hong Kong's ports. It's a logistical powerhouse,
Right.
which makes it a natural partner for GCC nations who want to expand their reach in Asia.
Okay, so we've talked a bit about Hong Kong's side of the story.
Yeah.
But what about the GCC?
Okay.
I know they're a group of oil-rich nations,
Right.
but what are they actually trying to achieve with this partnership?
So the GCC, which stands for the Gulf Cooperation Council, is a political and economic alliance of 6 Arab nations:
Right.
Bahrain, Kuwait, Oman, Qatar, Saudi Arabia, and the United Arab Emirates. And they're working to boost their economies and also their global influence. So it's about more than just selling oil then.
Way more. The GCC is actively trying to diversify away from oil.
Okay.
They're investing heavily in things like technology, renewables, and manufacturing. Basically, they're trying to future-proof their economies for a world after oil.
I see. And that's where Hong Kong's expertise comes into play, right? It seems like they each have something the other needs.
It's a perfect match in many ways.
Right.
The GCC has capital to invest,
Yeah.
and Hong Kong has the financial systems and the know-how to manage those investments. Plus, they have deep expertise in areas that are really crucial for the GCC's diversification strategy,
Right.
like fintech and green finance.
And speaking of finance, the sources mention some staggering numbers for trade between Hong Kong and the GCC.
Yes.
Something like $21.6 billion in 2023.
Right, and that number is only going to grow.
Wow.
But the key takeaway here is that the nature of the relationship is actually shifting.
Okay.
While oil and gas are still major exports from the GCC, we're seeing a big increase in the trade of things like manufactured goods, technology, and even renewable energy components.
So it's not just your typical oil for money deal.
Exactly. It's become much more dynamic and multifaceted.
And this diversification is being helped by those investment promotion and protection agreements, or IPPAs,
Right.
between Hong Kong and several GCC nations.
Yes. Those agreements are like a safety net for investors.
Right.
They ensure that investments are protected.
Which makes sense. It builds trust and encourages more capital to flow between the regions.
Exactly. It reduces risk and creates a more stable environment for business.
Yeah.
And you can't forget about those attractive tax benefits in Hong Kong.
Right.
It's a winning combination for GCC investors looking to diversify their portfolios.
So it sounds like there's a pretty strong foundation for this partnership. But before we get too carried away with all the positives, aren't there some potential risks or challenges as well?
Oh, of course.
I mean, we are talking about two very different cultures and political systems.
That's a great question. And it's definitely something we'll explore in more detail later on.
Okay.
But for now, I think it's safe to say that both sides recognize the potential benefits of this partnership and are committed to making it work.
All right, so we've established that Hong Kong and the GCC are becoming, pretty major economic allies.
Yeah.
But I'm curious, what are some concrete examples of this collaboration? What does it look like in practice?
Well, there's a lot happening on the ground.
Okay.
For example, in 2024, the Hong Kong Monetary Authority and Saudi Arabia's Public Investment Fund,
Okay.
they joined forces to create $1 billion fund.
Hold on, $1 billion?
Yeah.
That's not exactly pocket change.
No, it's a serious commitment.
What are they planning to do with all that money?
They're targeting investments in manufacturing, renewables, fintech, and healthcare. And what's really important here is that it's a two-way street.
Okay.
It's not just about GCC money flowing into Hong Kong.
Right.
It's also about helping Hong Kong and companies in the Greater Bay Area establish a presence in Saudi Arabia.
So it's a win-win for both sides.
Exactly. They're sharing expertise and opening up new markets for each other.
And we're also seeing specific examples of collaboration in the fintech sector as well.
Yes.
Just this past February, a Hong Kong-based fintech company called Valuable Capital Group secured a massive $48 million investment.
Right.
Led by ePartners, which is backed by Saudi Arabia's Public Investment Fund.
It's a great example of how Hong Kong's fintech expertise is aligning with Saudi Arabia's Vision 2030 to foster cross-border digital finance innovation.
So Hong Kong is solidifying its position as a global fintech hub.
It is.
And this investment strengthens its role in expanding digital financial solutions internationally.
Right. And it also deepens the strategic collaboration between Hong Kong and the GCC.
Okay.
In fintech and capital markets more broadly.
Now, can we talk about the Islamic finance sector for a second?
Yeah, sure.
I had no idea it was growing so rapidly.
It is.
What's driving that trend?
Well, primarily the rising demand for ethical and faith-based financial products is playing a big role. Globally, people are looking for investment opportunities that align with their values.
Right.
And Islamic finance really fits that bill.
Yeah.
Plus, the GCC countries, being predominantly Muslim, have a natural inclination towards Islamic finance, which further fuels its growth.
So this isn't just some niche market, it's a major force in the global financial landscape.
Absolutely. And Hong Kong, being the savvy business hub that it is, recognizes this trend and is really actively positioning itself as a center for Islamic finance.
That's a smart move.
It is a smart move, considering the increasing demand and the potential for growth in this sector.
Sounds like they're betting big on this partnership with the GCC.
They are, and for good reason. This isn't just about short-term gains.
Right.
It's about positioning Hong Kong as a key player in a rapidly evolving global economy.
So they're thinking long-term.
Exactly. They're anticipating future trends and forging these alliances.
Right.
That'll give them a competitive edge in the long run.
Okay, so we've talked about these billion-dollar funds and fintech deals, but are there any specific collaborations that really illustrate this partnership in action?
You're thinking about those 3 groundbreaking investment funds from 2024, right?
I am. Tell me more about this.
Sure. So one that exemplifies these growing ties between Saudi Arabia and Hong Kong is the Al Balad MSCI CSOP Hong Kong China Equity ETF. It's a landmark achievement, really, the first Saudi fund to directly target the Chinese market.
Wow.
What's fascinating is that it focuses specifically on Sharia-compliant investments in Chinese companies listed on the Hong Kong Stock Exchange.
Hold on, can you break that down for me a bit? What does Sharia-compliant actually mean when it comes to investments?
So Sharia-compliant investments basically adhere to Islamic principles.
Okay.
For example, they prohibit investments in businesses involved in alcohol, gambling, or pork. Instead, they tend to focus on more ethical and socially responsible sectors,
I see.
like renewable energy, healthcare, or sustainable agriculture.
So it's like a values-based approach to
You
investing.
got it. And it's gaining popularity globally, not just among Muslim investors.
Right.
A lot of people are looking for investments that align with their ethical beliefs, and Sharia-compliant investments offer that option.
So this Al-Balad ETF is a really clever way to cater to those investors while also opening up new avenues for investment in the Chinese market.
Exactly. It's a perfect example of how this partnership is creating these innovative financial products
Right.
that bridge cultural and economic divides.
And it's been hugely successful.
It has raised over $13 billion so far.
Wow, that's impressive. Sounds like they've really struck a chord with investors.
They have.
What about the other two funds?
Well, there's the CSOP Saudi Arabia Equity ETF, which is the first of its kind in the Asia-Pacific region. It tracks Saudi equity, so it basically provides a window into the Saudi stock market for Asian investors. And then there's a growing focus on developing more Islamic finance and Sharia-compliant products, more generally, which really reflects the increasing demand for these types of financial solutions globally.
So Hong Kong is becoming like a one-stop shop for investors who are seeking those ethical and faith-based investment opportunities in Asia.
You could say that they're clearly positioning themselves as a leader in this space. And the best part is that this benefits everyone involved.
Right.
It provides investors with more choices.
Yeah.
It opens up new markets. And it promotes a more inclusive and diverse financial system overall.
This is all starting to make sense now. It's like watching a whole new financial ecosystem emerge. But I'm still curious about one thing. We've talked a lot about finance and investments, but what about other areas of collaboration? What about things like renewable energy, which we both know is so crucial for the GCC's diversification plans?
That's a great point, and it's definitely something that we'll delve into much deeper in the next part of our deep dive. But for now, let's just say that this partnership extends far beyond finance.
All right, I'm intrigued. I can't wait to hear more about that. But before we move on, can you give me one key takeaway so far? Why should our listeners care about this partnership?
What's happening between Hong Kong and the GCC is really a glimpse into the future of the global economy. We're seeing these new alliances forming, driven by innovation, technology, and a desire to build a more sustainable and inclusive world. And this is really just the tip of the iceberg.
So it's not just about two regions doing business. It's about reshaping the global economic landscape.
Exactly. And by understanding what's happening here, we can gain insights into the forces that are going to shape the world in the years to come.
Well, you've definitely given me a lot to think about. I'm ready to dive deeper into this partnership. Should we move on to the next part of our deep dive?
Let's do it. We'll explore those challenges and opportunities that lie ahead.
Okay.
And discuss the potential implications of this partnership for you, the listener.
Sounds good. Okay, so we've established that Hong Kong and the GCC are building this powerful economic alliance.
Right.
But you know what they say about the best laid plans, right?
Yeah.
What could go wrong?
Well, you've got to remember that the Middle East, where the GCC is located, can be a little unpredictable. Geopolitically speaking, any instability in the region could spook investors and slow down that economic collaboration.
That's a good point. It's like building this beautiful house in a hurricane zone.
Yeah.
You've got to think about those external risks.
Exactly. And then there are internal challenges as well. Even though Hong Kong and the GCC, they both believe in free trade.
Right.
Their regulatory systems and business practices are pretty different.
Yes, that classic clash of cultures.
Yeah.
How do they overcome those differences without driving each other crazy?
That's where the hard work comes in.
Yeah.
They've got to find ways to harmonize those regulations and streamline those business processes.
Right.
It's a complex dance, but it's essential for smooth and efficient trade and investment.
So lots of negotiation and compromise, I imagine.
Definitely.
But wouldn't you say that these challenges could also present some opportunities?
Oh, absolutely. Necessity is the mother of invention.
Right.
Think about it.
Yeah.
Having to navigate all these regulatory differences could lead to some really interesting breakthroughs in areas like cross-border payments or, developing new Fintech solutions.
So it's like turning lemon into lemonade?
Yeah.
Or maybe in this case, oil into algorithms.
I like that.
Okay, let's shift gears a bit and talk about the opportunities. We've touched on a few already, but I want to get your take on the areas where this partnership could really take off.
Well, one area with just huge potential is renewable energy. The GCC has so much sunshine,
Right.
and Hong Kong has the financial expertise and the technology
Yeah.
to build these massive renewable energy projects.
It's a perfect match.
It is a match made in sustainable heaven, you can say.
Plus, it aligns perfectly with global efforts to fight climate change.
Right.
So it's not just good business, it's good for the planet.
Exactly, a win-win.
And then there's the whole tech sector.
Yes.
We've seen some exciting stuff in fintech,
Right.
but I feel like we're just scratching the surface.
I agree.
Hong Kong is a global leader in things like AI, robotics, and biotech, while the GCC really wants to build a knowledge-based economy.
Right. So it's like Hong Kong is the tech mentor,
Yeah,
and the GCC is the eager student ready to soak up all that knowledge.
that's a good way to put it.
Yeah, and this knowledge transfer benefits both sides.
Right.
The GCC gets access to cutting-edge technology, and Hong Kong gains a foothold in a rapidly growing market.
Speaking of markets, we've seen those GCC sovereign wealth funds pouring money into Hong Kong.
Yes.
But do you think this investment will start to flow in the opposite direction as well?
I definitely think so. As GCC economies mature and diversify,
Right.
their companies and investors are going to be looking to expand globally. And you know what? Hong Kong is perfectly positioned to be their gateway
Yeah.
to Asia and beyond.
So it's not just a one-way street.
Exactly. It's a two-way superhighway of investment and opportunity.
And all this economic activity has to translate into something tangible, right? Like jobs and growth.
Exactly.
So how does all this high-level finance stuff impact the average person?
Well, for starters, think about jobs.
Okay.
We've already seen thousands of new jobs created in Hong Kong thanks to GCC investments, especially in the tech sector.
Yeah.
As the partnership expands into other areas,
Right.
we can expect to see similar growth in renewables, manufacturing, and logistics.
So it's not just about abstract economic figures.
No.
It's about real people getting real jobs.
Exactly. And it's not just about jobs either.
Okay.
Increased trade and investment can lead to lower prices for consumers. If GCC countries can export their goods to Asia more efficiently through Hong Kong,
Right.
that means cheaper stuff for everyone.
So it's like a global bargain bin?
Not exactly, but you get the idea.
Yeah.
It's about making goods and services more accessible and affordable.
Okay, that all sounds pretty rosy.
Yeah.
But let's be real.
Sure.
Not everyone benefits equally from this kind of rapid economic change, right?
That's right. One of the biggest concerns is that potential for widening inequality. Policymakers in both Hong Kong and the GCC need to be really careful to make sure that the benefits of this partnership are shared fairly.
Right.
And that no one is left behind.
So sustainable growth has to be inclusive.
It does.
Otherwise, you just end up with a bigger gap between the haves and the have-nots.
Right.
Now, I want to circle back to something you mentioned earlier about geopolitical uncertainty. How can Hong Kong and the GCC mitigate those risks and protect their partnership?
Well, diversification is key.
Okay.
By expanding their collaboration beyond those traditional areas like energy and finance,
Right.
they can spread the risk and become less vulnerable to shocks in any one sector.
Don't put all your eggs in one basket.
Yeah.
Exactly. And just as important is building strong people-to-people ties. Think about student exchanges, cultural events, tourism initiatives.
Right.
The more people from both regions understand and appreciate each other's cultures, the stronger that foundation for their partnership will be.
So it's about building bridges.
It is.
Not just economic ones, but also cultural and social ones.
Right.
It's like a global friendship bracelet,
Yeah.
but with a lot more financial clout.
I like that image. It really captures what this partnership is all about. Connecting people, ideas, and cultures in a way that benefits everyone involved.
We've covered a lot of ground in this part of our deep dive.
Yeah.
Explored the potential challenges,
Yes.
the exciting opportunities, and those real-world implications of this partnership.
Right.
But I'm curious to hear your final thoughts on the long-term implications.
Okay.
What does the future hold for Hong Kong, the GCC, and the world?
That's a question that could fill an entire podcast series.
But
I'll try to keep it brief. Okay.
I believe this partnership has the potential to be a real game changer. It's a model for how regions with complementary strengths can work together to create a more prosperous and sustainable future.
That's a bold statement.
It is.
But I can see why you're so optimistic.
Yeah.
This partnership is about more than just two regions doing business.
Right.
It's about shaping a new global order,
Yeah.
One that's more balanced, inclusive, and innovative.
Exactly. And that's what makes it so fascinating to watch.
Yeah.
We're witnessing history in the making here.
Right.
And the implications are far-reaching.
Hmm.
This is a story that's still being written.
Yeah.
And I think the next chapter is going to be even more exciting than the last.
Well, that's a perfect segue to the final part of our deep dive,
Okay.
where we'll explore what this partnership means for you, the listener.
Great.
Get ready for some actionable insights and maybe even a few surprises.
All right. So we talked about the big picture,
The history, the dynamics, the potential of this Hong Kong GCC partnership.
Yeah.
But let's get down to brass tacks.
Okay.
What does this mean for our listeners?
That's where it gets really exciting.
Oh.
Because this isn't just some, abstract geopolitical game.
Right.
This has real implications for, entrepreneurs, investors, even everyday consumers.
So give me an example. Let's say I'm a tech entrepreneur.
Okay.
What kind of doors does this partnership open for me?
Well, think about it this way.
Okay.
Hong Kong is a global fintech hub, right?
Right.
And the GCC is pouring tons of resources into becoming a digital economy powerhouse. So suddenly you've got access to these two massive interconnected markets.
I see.
You could be a Hong Kong-based startup
Yeah.
developing AI-powered financial tools specifically for the GCC market.
Right.
Or you could be a GCC entrepreneur leveraging Hong Kong's expertise to launch your innovative payment platform globally.
So it's not just about finding investors. It's about
Right.
tapping into this whole new ecosystem
Exactly.
of collaborators, mentors, potential customers.
There's a whole new world of possibilities.
And it's not limited to fintech either, right?
Not at all. This partnership is creating fertile ground for new businesses in renewable energy, healthcare, logistics.
Wow.
Really, the sky's the limit.
Okay, so now let's say I'm not building the next big startup, but I am interested in investing.
Okay.
What are some smart bets to make, given this growing connection between Hong Kong and the GCC?
Well, the answer depends on your risk tolerance and investment goals, of course.
Right.
But broadly speaking, there are a few key areas to watch.
Okay.
Green finance is a big one. As the GCC invests heavily in renewables,
Right.
there's going to be a huge demand for financing those projects.
Yeah.
And Hong Kong's expertise in green bonds and sustainable investments
Right.
makes it really well positioned to be a major player in that space.
So even if I'm not out there installing solar panels, I can still support the companies that are.
Exactly. You can get in on the action by investing in those companies.
Nice.
And then there's Islamic finance, which we talked about earlier.
Right.
Hong Kong is really trying to become a hub for Islamic finance, offering all sorts of Sharia-compliant products and services.
Okay.
This is an area with huge potential,
Yeah.
both for investors seeking ethical investment options
Right.
and for those just looking to capitalize on a growing market.
So many possibilities. It sounds like the key is to stay informed, do your research,
Yeah,
and be willing to kind of explore these new opportunities as they pop up.
exactly. This partnership is creating a whole new landscape of possibilities, and the early adopters are going to be the ones who reap the rewards.
Now, let's not forget about the everyday consumer.
Right.
How does all of this impact their daily lives?
Well, in more ways than you might think.
Okay.
As trade and investment flows increase,
Yeah.
we're going to see a wider variety of goods and services available, and hopefully at more competitive prices.
Right.
Think about, high-quality GCC products becoming more readily available in Asian markets.
Right.
Or innovative tech solutions developed in Hong Kong making their way to the Middle East.
So greater choice, better value,
Yeah,
access to cutting-edge products and services.
exactly. It's a win for consumers.
It is. And beyond the economic benefits,
Right.
there's the potential for, greater cultural exchange and understanding.
Absolutely. As tourism flows increase,
Yeah.
people from both regions are going to have more opportunities to interact, learn from each other,
Right.
and break down those stereotypes.
That's an important point. It's not just about economic transaction.
No, it's not.
It's about building bridges between people and cultures.
You said it, and ultimately that's what makes this partnership so exciting.
Yeah.
It has the potential to create a more prosperous, sustainable, and harmonious future for everyone.
Well, we've covered a lot of ground in this deep dive.
We have.
We've explored the history, the dynamics, the potential, the real-world implications of this partnership between Hong Kong and the GCC.
It's a fascinating story.
It is. Any final thoughts for our listeners?
Just this, keep your eyes on this partnership.
Okay.
It's a story that's only just beginning.
Right.
The next few years will be really crucial in determining its ultimate impact. But one thing's for sure, the world is changing.
Yeah.
And those who are willing to embrace those changes will be the ones who shape the future.
Well, that's a wrap on this deep dive into Hong Kong's GCC connection. Thanks for joining us. Until next time, stay curious and keep exploring.